Welcome to JackHorney.com show.
Hello, folks. I just thought I'd do this about a case I've just. I'm not sure if you class it as winning. It was dismissed anyway yesterday on the 20th of December 2019. The case was Vehicle Control Services versus me. Now, before I start, this is about a private, one of these private firms that do the parking firms or whatever you call them. This is not the government council, whatever you call them. My advice is always, if you get a ticket on the double yellow or whatever, a proper official one from the council, it's probably better to pay it unless you've really got a good case. Don't ignore it. People end up with paying hundreds of pounds. It could even go to thousands because it ends up going to court. The council probably win, and you'll end up with a vast bill. So if you get it, my advice is probably just pay the damn thing straight away. Unless you've got a good case. I mean, my friend got a speeding ticket from one of them yellow vans, and she wrote, and I phoned, and the guy, she was genuine. What happened was she was quite stressed. There was death in the family, blah, blah, blah. She wasn't having anyone on. In fact, to be honest, it was actually, she was more stressed than I think she even put in the letter. And I also phoned to see if the chap had received it. And he was quite a nice chap. But I wouldn't always count on that. It'd have been, if it hadn't gone their way, she'd have had to pay the full thing. It'd probably be cheaper for I'd have just paid the damn thing, to be honest. But she wrote. I mean, like I said, that's up to you. My advice again is just pay the damn thing and get it out of the way. Pay it day one. Mainly because it'll just, if you forget and it ends up doubling the bill and it goes up. And the other problem is it's not cheap these days. Now, if you object to it, I mean, to be honest, a lot of the speeding cameras, especially fixed ones, to me are just money-making schemes, and I think some councils have admitted to that. There are places, I think, won't put speed cameras up. I think that's North Yorkshire. I think they've got a policy of not having any at all, so it's not every council that has them. And these days, I always say, if your council's got them and it irritates you, either vote them out at the next local elections or even stand for election. The last election, the main one, has proved one thing. The old everybody votes Labour, even if the guy's a potato, that seems to have gone out the window. It used to be that Labour could guarantee, it didn't matter who they put up, they can put any old wally up. And they knew they'd win. It didn't matter because you had a lot of people who just went, I've always voted Labour. It's too stupid to think. I can't think. Whole family voted Labour. Look how clever I am. That sort of principle seems to have gone out the window now. So you could win. So it's probably worth it, even if you don't win. I don't think it, unlike the main ones, I don't think you have to pay anything to put yourself up. I might be wrong on that. Anyway, so what we're dealing with today is a private firm. So it's called, I'll go through it again, Vehicle Control Services. Now there's a few of them, but I think Vehicle Control Services a bit pushes towards the, most I don't think will bother going to court. It's just not worth it, to be honest. But let's go through the process. If you get a yellow, now this is what you might find, and personally, don't park on private land. I'm not telling you to do it, but say you didn't realise, because sometimes people do go onto this land and they don't realise, and you get a ticket. Now, normally there's two things that happen. You'll either get a ticket on the car by a person, they'll fill in the form and stick it on, or you might get it, you should supposed to get one within, I think, 14 days if they haven't put it on. So supermarkets tend to do it. So you might drive into a car park, your local supermarket. It might have 2 hours, but and then it automatically records you going in and going out. Now the trouble is, some people are caught out because they'll go to the petrol station, they'll have parked legitimately within the 2 hours, drive to the petrol station, which is still on the land, or even go to another shop, drive across, and then think, oh well, they're legitimately in time. Then when they drive out, because they've been in the car park space more than 2 hours, it records them as being on the land 2 hours. Now, to me, I don't think you've been. I think that's worth arguing, because to me that's dishonest. Because you haven't parked up 2 hours, you've actually moved the car. But anyway, and there's no guarantee. I mean, you could have come in and out that car park a few times with that 2 hours, and we're just relying on the machine to state you haven't. It gets a bit, that bit comes a bit dodgy. But in this circumstance, what I faced was, I collected a friend from his flat. I've been doing this for years now. The flat, it's slightly complicated because the land, there's about space for about 6, 7 cars, and half the car park doesn't actually belong to the flats; it belongs to another person. So it gets complicated there who owns the land. But in this case, it was blown out before we even needed to discuss that. What happened was I pulled in, and a moment later, this chap pulls in with his white van. We have a conversation. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the chap said, because this is they're stating this didn't happen. So what I'm stated is, but although, by the way, this is slightly irrelevant anyway. I claimed that I came in to pick my friend up, and the chap said, "Oh, it's fine. Just go get him." And then when I came out, there was no ticket on the car, and I took him home. It was only a minute in this flat. Now, later, I got after 22, I think it was 22 days after the event, I got a ticket in the post. Now, I believe the last date something like 14 days. Of course, you've got to remember that they could argue 14 working days. So if you ever do this, remember that if it's sort of 15 days, they might make a claim on weekends. I'm not sure. I might be wrong on that. It might actually be 14 days regardless. You need to check that out. But anyway, I got the letter, and foolishly, and I say this because personally, from my experience since then and before it, is I tend to just ignore these companies, because I find the processes usually send you 3 letters, and then they try and scare you by sending you 3 more from a fake bailiff, or it might be a bailiff firm, but they're not bailiffs, because you've got to understand that they can't send a bailiff to collect money until it's gone to court. So yeah, don't be scared by these letters. You see, the problem is once you reply, you've a bit of guilt basically, and this is what the problem is. You've admitted you're the driver. Now, there's a difference between the council sending you a letter and a private firm. If it's a council, it's the whoever they send it to, the car owner, I think, is responsible for the bill. Doesn't matter if they're driving or not. But with a private firm, my understanding is, and again, you might need to check this out, but my understanding is it's the driver who's responsible, not the registered keeper. So that's why it gets a bit complicated for these firms, because if you write back to them and state, I parked there, but the reason I did it was X, Y, and Z, you've admitted guilt. They've got the driver. And this is why sometimes it's worth considering not writing back or contacting them, because if you don't contact them, all they've got is the car owner's details. And by the way, they'll get this from the DVLA. That's the main source. It's unlikely you can get it anywhere else. So going back to this case, and this is. I wrote to them and said, "Look, the guy said I could park there," and then they actually messed about, and then I did a stupid thing. Well, it wasn't stupid, but there's a couple of places you can complain to. They're supposed to be independent. Now, I don't think they are personally. Um, in my experience, I think from doing this, I think it was a waste of time, and I'll explain why. I wrote to them and said, well, you can dismiss this case because it's over the 14 days. Instantly dismissed it. Straightforward. It's actually quite. It was the most black and white case going, and yet this firm, this so-called independent, said no, they're in the right. So that's why I think they're just a waste of time. Personally, makes if something as straightforward as that is clearly wrong, and they've gone to the side of the parking firm, um, it doesn't make me think that they're worth. I mean, read online, a lot of people seem to consider them not independent, but it's down to you if you want to contact them. Personally, I don't think it was worth a stamp. Also, when I did it online, it wouldn't accept my evidence, and I think I don't know if they've changed it, but on the website, it just wouldn't allow me to upload anything. So it was a bit waste of time. But I think the law states, or even in their paperwork, that the car park firm has to accept the decision, but you as the person doing it does not. I don't think it makes it black and white in that regards. So I just ignored that. And this is going, by the way, let me just see if it says it. I've got the date this happened. This isn't recent, by the way, folks. This is going back. Oh, God. I'll just see. As I'm talking, I've got some paper in the background because they've tried to scare me by sending hundreds of pages. And I don't get scared very easily, folks. I mean, I really don't. I'm the worst person you send this to because I just find it amusing. I'm the last person. And by the way, don't ever get scared by this stuff. You're not going to go to prison or anything. This really isn't. I mean, one thing is that I don't think they can claim much anyway. I don't think they can claim. I'll go into this in a minute. By the way, right? Let me find the date. This is going back to It looks like 10th of the 7th, 2013. I think it was 2013. Let's see. Or was it 15? It might have been 15. The person who wrote it down was a terrible writer. Oh, here we go. This might be better. 2015. Sorry, folks. I'll just it happened. Hang on, let's see. We've got two here. Well, just see. I'll just make sure you've got the dates, folks. The incident happened 10th of the 7th, 2015. I'm not sure what date that is. And then they wrote to me. Oh God, the paperwork's terrible. You can't read it. Sort of a little chickadee click off there. Let's see, there's dates. So the issue date they put on was the 29th of the 7th, 2015. So you can tell that's quite a long time after. So where are we on to that? Oh God, I've lost my track. Oh yeah, so I've completely lost my track now, folks. Oh yeah, so but after that, to be honest, they wrote to me and said you've lost the putting in for this hoo-ha. Did the firm? They said, well, the independent body or whatever's gone our way. You must pay up. Well, I ignored it. Sodom. Because I knew I was in the right. So I think they might have sent me one or two more letters, and then I've just ignored them. Then this year, I think it was the start. I don't think they did it last year. I might be wrong on that. They started writing a few scary letters saying, we want our money, as they do. Often with these, like I said, often with these firms, sometimes they send it from fake solicitors, or even if they are solicitors, and they're not. They're literally tissue paper to write your backside on. But by the way, keep all the mail. Always keep it because it's important. Because in one of the letters, I believe, I can't remember if I don't think I was wrong. I think I've got it somewhere where they originally claimed that the reason they didn't put a yellow ticket on the car was because the car park was massive or something and couldn't see it. It was some weird statement. But that obviously sounded stupid considering there was only space for 6 cars or 7 or something. It was a silly one. So we get this who what that now then they go to the cart stage. Now never ever ever whatever you do, never ignore cart letters because by definition they win automatically. If you ignore it, it's an automatic win for them, which is I think what they hope because I think it costs them about £25 to apply. So if you ignore it, it's a win for them. I think it's. I'm not even sure you can fight it. Then you might be able to, but it's just not worth hassle. Always reply to court letters for goodness sakes. I always say this. Some people ignore it thinking it'll go away. It won't. Don't be silly. Just for replying, it'll save you a lot of money. So now we're on the process of the court letters. So this is where, again, I think they're hoping you'll pay just out of fear. Now, this is something to know, and you can look this up. Basically, what you're doing is going to small claims court. Now, don't panic, folks, if this happens, because even if they bring in the most expensive barrister, you don't pay their fees on this thing. Well, that's my understanding. You can check it out. You might need advice. I mean, don't take my word. Never in these things. I'm not giving legal advice. It's just my experience. But the basically the claim is going to be just the fine. I think it was about £100, and I think they can add on a little bit, such as interest or whatever. But even if you lose, and this is something important to remember, folks, even if you lose, and if you're not on a huge wage, you can, but I think especially if you're unemployed, I don't think you have to pay it in one go. I think you can pay. You can not if you're not much money. I think you can fill in a form and you can offer. I know people I think have offered 10 pence a month, and they have to virtually accept it because if that's all you've got, that's it. So don't start freaking out that you're gonna have to pay out hundreds of pounds. Even if you lose one of these car things, I don't think it's massive. You're gonna be paying up. It's why you get your money's worth. Let them pay for the solicitors, whatever. If it goes this far, this is why it's not worth most firms going to court. I mean, in reality, firms that even if you owe them a couple of grand, they'll just drop it. A lot of firms will not waste the time because it's just not the cost to them is just too much if they're going to lose or whatever. Even if they win first, some of them. It's why banks don't tend to. If you owe banks money, they usually close the case and send it off to um, one of these payment collection firms. They sell it. They sell the debt on because it's not worth their time, even for a few grand. It's only when it gets 100 grand that usually they're more likely to do it. I'm not saying that every time. I mean, some people take your cart for 10 quid, but honestly, I mean, I've said this to people who've considered it. I've said, is it really worth it? Because you could end if you lose, you're gonna end up paying for their costs on the other side and stuff. I mean, it's not massive cost. It's just, but it's just really not worth the hassle for small fees. But let's go on to this. So there's a few processes. You fill in a form. I filled it in and stated I didn't agree with it because it had gone over the 14 days. And there was a few other things. I'll go into the other reasons I didn't think, but it didn't come up in the court case, but it's worth me mentioning. So, and then they say, but then it goes to a few more. So you get do you want to go to mediation? Now, mediation is useful if you're going to go, if you say that one firm claims you owe 1,000, but you believe you only owe 300, that's mediation's useful. But I turned that down because I knew I was in the right, and I wasn't going to be prepared to even pay £1. Not a single pound was I going to give this firm, because I knew I was in the right. So then I filled in another form and fast forward. Oh, by the way, you're allowed to. ask for evidence. If they haven't provided it, you can ask for evidence, but you need to do that as soon as you can. I mean, there are things that you should ask for. Evidence of contract, because you got to remember that these firms don't usually own the land; they're doing it for another party, a third party. So you need to know that there is a contract, because anyone could claim it. I could claim that you've driven onto person's ex land, and I put up some signs, but there might not be any contract there. You need to know that happens, because that's quite an easy one. I mean, I could just put a sign up. Um, I could just stand in a van, wait for somebody to drive on a bit of land, run up, put a sign up behind the car, put a ticket on the car, and say pay up. But I don't have any. I don't even know who the owner of the land is. It could be private, it could be public. Um, you've got to know these things. I mean, don't. This is why you shouldn't be scared. And by the way, these tickets they put on aren't the government ones. They try and make them look like the government ones, very close, but they usually say on it it's not government. So don't be scared by any of these tickets. They really are. They're not the government. I mean, this is what a lot of people just pay up because they think it's easier. I mean, so for some people it might be, but I'm not giving a penny of my money to people just because they claim it. If you want, that's fine. Personally, I don't. I'm not just gonna, if somebody comes up to my street and puts a gun to my head, I'm not, I'll, I'm not really going. I'd rather keep my money and let them blow me. Well, yeah, that might sound silly, but I'm not giving my money to people just because they demand it or they think they're powerful enough to. This company isn't powerful. I'm not interested in them. I don't even know if they're a company. I don't give a damn about them. The doing this parking thing. If you want to do it, that's up to you. But to me, it's not something to be proud of. It's on the lines of doing animal testing or being a bailiff. It's not a particularly nice job. It's not something you could be proud of. You know, pride is something like, I mean, I had a pride doing road sweeping. At least you've got pride in that. Doing this. The people who do this, I don't understand how they've got any feeling of pride. I mean, but that's up to them. It's not my personal choice. I have too much pride to have done a firm like this. Um, Anyway, I mean, they're so trustworthy that they had the clamping thing taken off them a few years because they couldn't be trusted to put clamps on cars. They're not exactly. I don't think people consider them the most brilliant firm. But anyway, so we get a lot of paperwork. Oh, by the way, before I got the court case, they sent me a huge pile of paper, obviously to try and scare me into paying. A lot of this is scare tactics. Again, I think people panic and see the cart things and thinking, "Oh, sod it, I'll pay it." But unfortunately, because I've got experience doing this before, it doesn't scare me, folks. Really doesn't. I don't panic, and I think this is why I like to share. This is why I want to share with you, folks, because I don't want you to panic either. It's not something to worry about at all. I'm just checking if this thing's recording. Sorry. Yeah, looks like it's recording. So, like I said, don't panic, folks. It's nothing to worry about. So, they send me a huge pile of gobbledygook. I mean, basically, they try to scare me. But what I'll do is I'll include the paperwork so you can read it for yourself. So, their argument is because I put forward the main one was my point was the 14 days ruling. Now they put in, and it was confusing until we got to court why they said it. They claim that it didn't apply to them. I'll go through so when it got to court, because this might apply to you folks. Um, they claimed that they didn't write to the driver but the owner. Now when it got to court, the excuse was that because they spoke to me, I identified myself. And oh, by the way, when you go to court, the judges are very nice. Don't worry about the judges; they're very supportive. It's very, very. I mean, the guy actually, when they went there, the this parking firm, they actually sent a solicitor. I think it was a solicitor, but it's really nice. Um, I think they were doing a few in one go. They're probably on what they call a retainer, so it's probably cheaper for them. I mean, I felt sorry for this lister because it's not exactly. I mean, he was a decent guy. I think this was clearly below him. I think he knew we were going to lose. I mean, he was just wasting everyone's time. But that's the thing about this. You'd be surprised. It does appear to be that everyone knows everyone's wasting everyone's time, but they just play it. To me, these firms should lose the license or be fined for wasting carts' time. I think it's disgusting. But anyway, let's go. Their excuse was they spoke to me at the scene, which they spoke to my mate actually. Um, and on that, they claim that they identify. They tried to suggest I went, oh yes, my name is X, Y, and Z, and my address is X, Y, and Z, which is nonsense. No one would do that in their right mind. No one's going to go up and give you details to strangers. It's just never going to happen. Even the judge said that. Well, didn't say it in that words, but so they said, well, so the judge basically said, "Can you provide evidence?" And they went, "Well, no, I can't." So that was it. Automatically dismissed it because the process was we went in. I think they give you everyone goes at X time and then they just queue you. So in my case, it was 10 o'clock yesterday, so it was on the 20th. I think I went in nearer. It wasn't quite on the 11. It was about quarter to 11. Literally went in. The judge was very nice, although she wasn't very impressed that I took my bag because she asked me what was in it, and I said, well, I had my raincoat because it was going to rain, and I'd cycled in. Because to be honest, slight no, it's easier to cycle into town than to drive in or anything. I just cycle, and it's quicker than getting back the bus. Plus, if I'd missed the bus, I could have been in a right mess with the time. Well, actually, I didn't cycle. I went on a scooter. I have one of it's not a motor scooter. It's actually one of them. It's like a kids one, but it's for adults. Um, Although you probably think it's a kids one, because it was fairly flat into town. So I got there just as it was just a few more minutes than it would have taken to cycle. But the only trouble I was knackered afterwards. But that's going offline. So anyway, I taken a backpack. Oh, this is quite interesting as well. Be careful when you go because I knew you couldn't take a penknife in, so I left. I had a tiny little pocket knife on a penknife that I left at home on purpose. But when I went in, they took off a torch off me. My batteries, because I always have batteries for my head torch. It's a head torch, you see. And what was the third thing? Oh, well, they took the scooter off me. I knew I expected them to. They just put it in a cupboard and you just get a receipt. And I asked the chap what the reason why they took the torch off, and they said, well, you might shine it in the judge's eyes. Fair enough. So I then said, so why the batteries? Because they'll let you go in with a mobile phone. And they said, oh, don't ask me about football. We'll just get a list. So we had a giggle over that. But if you go, don't take a torch, batteries, and certainly not any penknife or any tools or anything. Ideally, if you ever go to court, leave as much as you can at home. Really is, because take everything out of your pockets because it's much easier. Saves you having to bother with these things. If you're like me, I carry lots of clutter on me, but if I was you, if you ever go, just take at least everything at home and certainly don't go in with a penknife or anything because they will freak out. Doesn't matter how small it is. Or even a tool, so even if you got a multi-tool that doesn't even have a knife, and don't bother. Just don't risk it. So anyway, so the judge was really nice, as I say, and that basically she just dismissed the case and that. But well, that was, I mean, that's why it's important because some people listening to this might come across this. They might try it on. Um, and I did wonder why they argued that they were exempt from this. But there wasn't, basically. The judge went, well, I didn't. If I'd given my name and address, I think that might have been the way around it, but, I didn't. Um, but what happened was that, and this was interesting. I'm going to go through the things that wasn't brought up in the case, but they put it in the paperwork. Now they claimed, and this is interesting. They claimed that they gave me 10 minutes. Apparently, so my argument was going to be if I hadn't won on the timing, the 22 days, I was going to claim that basically they'd no evidence of me being there 10 minutes. That was one thing because they took some pictures of the car parked, and but it was only they only showed one set picture. So the argument I was going to put forward there was they had no evidence I was there 10 minutes or when the 10 minutes started, because obviously did it start when he first spoke to me, or did he do it when he first spotted the car? Because like I said, he gave me 10 minutes, so there was no. And don't forget, a lot of this is his word against mine. So that was one argument I was going to have. The second one was I did have evidence that he'd gone first. I mean, I had witnesses, by the way, although I didn't bother bringing them. I didn't think I needed to. But there was I did have evidence that this guy went before me, although he claimed he went after. I did have evidence of that, although I didn't need to show it. Some of the other things, what was brought up? Oh yeah. Um, I mean, the reason why he claimed that he didn't put the ticket on was that he said that um, he felt intimidated by me. Well, I even said that the judge says, no, I said it to his solicitor, says, intimidated by me. Look at me. No one's intimidated by me. If he was, why didn't he phone the police? I mean, the guy who actually was, it was huge. No one would have intimidated this guy. Um, so it was a bit silly. But I think, I mean, like I said, the statement it just didn't even sound correct. But I'll let you read it. I'm going to have to block out my details because I don't really want them online. I mean, like I said, they sent me pages of stuff. I mean, I'm just going to. You can read this. I think it's important, folks, because I'm not going to go through it. I mean, there's literally so much of it. Most of it's just to scare me. I mean, I'm just looking at it now. But don't ever panic, folks. I mean, this is what I'm saying. Personally, it's up to you if you ever want to reply. But a lot of people suggest, I'm going to say this, a lot of people say just ignore these damn firms. Let them write to you thousands of letters, waste of time. Because they're not, they try and make everything look official. They're not the courts. I mean, they're not the police or the council. And again, if it is the police or council, but, from the government, that's different. Pay the damn thing unless you've got a good thing to get out of it. These are you've got to remember, what you're dealing with is just contractual law. Oh, by the way, that was another thing I was going to argue that because the guy who was putting the ticket on, in their statement, which I don't remember him saying it, I don't think he did, they're claiming that he said to me, I have 10 minutes to wait. So my argument there was, and I don't know if it would have won on that, but I was going to argue that it's changed the contract law because that wasn't what was on the sign. I mean, this is something, and this might apply to a lot of people because you could use this as evidence. They claim that they give people 10 minutes or something. You can read like I said, you can read it. So, I mean, this is their official paperwork. So, if you do have to go to court and you think you haven't been given 10 minutes, perhaps you could. I don't know if this could be used as evidence. But anyway, even if it doesn't, it might be worth bringing up, saying that in this case, can you check it out? I mean, like, I don't know if you could or not. Let me just read it. I mean, they sent me pages of this stuff. I mean, I basically broke it down. I mean, like I said, I don't get intimidated. The problem is I enjoy doing this. I mean, if you look at the videos I've done on Gale Downs on the anti-porn thing, you can see how I love breaking stuff down. It's a game for me. I mean, I just enjoy the fact these companies waste their money. I mean, I hope they all go bust, personally. It's an appalling thing to do. Really is appalling. I'll show you the pit diagram of the car park as well, and everything. I mean, it is. Oh dear, it is scandalous to me. But hey, like I said, they're basically about. I mean, I suspect these firms rely on people just paying up. That, I think, is how they do it. I think I mean, I remember years ago when I first passed my test, I used to just pay. I had one in a local car park, and I didn't think it. I knew it wasn't legit, but I just paid the damn thing. Um, and since then, I've learnt my lesson. You start once you bet, and you really get to you start more conscious of things going on, and then, like I say, we share these things, so it's important to share as much information with others and tell people don't be scared. Don't be scared of these firms, the private ones especially. Do not be scared because they're not as powerful as they think. I mean, they'll send you a lot of threatening little things, and they do. It all looks tries to make it more threatening than it is. And you've got to remember, do not wear it. No, they can't send bailiffs until it goes to court. So just ignore anything, even if they send letters that sound like because I had one, and they had on bailiff or something, and then on the back of it said, "Oh, we're not bailiffs." You know, what I mean, they just call themselves bailiffs. So what? They can't come to your house. If they come to your house, I mean, that's a whole news story. Even if they go to court, I mean, by the way, don't ever let a bailiff in your house. I wouldn't even open a door to a bailiff, not even a window, because I think that gives them legal right to come back and come in next time. Um, the bailiffs don't have as much powers as the track. They'll probably scare you. Oh, this is a little tip. If you do speak to one of their staff, one of the parking people, if they do, when they do, record it, because if they say to you, "Oh yeah, you can park here free," and then you get a ticket, well, it's your word against theirs. Record everything on your phone. Um, do this for everything. You can, if your phone doesn't record, you can get apps to record. And the quality in your phone is usually high quality as well. So record it. Never trust these people one bit. You've got to understand these people aren't. You've got to presume they're going to stuff you over. So always record everything and keep all the letters just in case. And I think they've got up to 6 years or something to claim back. So even if it's gone 5 years, they might try it on. That's what I think they did in this case. I think they was hoping I'd forget everything or lose all the paperwork. I don't. I keep it all. And but that's up to them if they want to play the system. But a lot of firms, a lot of the parking firms, I suspect, won't take your car. It's just not worth the time. But you see, in this case, I was surprised they even bothered sending a solicitor, but it sounded like they were doing a few cases. And in some of those cases, they'll probably win. I mean, the reason why they can win is simply because you've wrote back. Doesn't matter the reason. The fact you've wrote back to them automatically proves that you're the driver, which gives them a case. Because if it goes to court, they then have to prove you were the driver, not the owner. It sounds a bit complicated, but the DVLA doesn't record the driver. My understanding is it's the owner that's recorded by the DVLA. And what happens is these firms pay the DVLA a couple of quid for your address, and then they write to you. Now, they usually do it as quick as they can because obviously they've got 14 days. I don't know why in this case it took 22 days. I thought they were going to argue to begin with that it wasn't registered to me or something, because I had evidence it was, because somebody wrote to me before, a couple of years before. So I had evidence of that, so they couldn't pull that one. But you've got to be careful. Read all this stuff, but like I said, contacting them does seem a bit rather pointless, because they're not. The other legit ones will probably go fine, but it's just a paper company, these things. You know, the contracts. So I don't agree that even. I mean, you see, the trouble is the law seems to suggest that, but if you drive on, you've agreed to the contract. Well, I haven't agreed to any contract, but I think the law states I have by doing it. And that's all it is. It's basically, you got to remember that it's an admin thing. That it's a bit like I don't know, renting a video. You agree to the renting, and if it's late, you agree to pay a fine or something. and then basically they write to you and say you owe us X amount of money, and then you either pay it or whatever. That it's basically that's what it is. Um, you see, you don't forget if it's the government or council. I think it's classed as a different thing. I think that's is it a fine or something? I'm not sure, but that's more serious. When it's a private firm, it's not a fine. I think legally it's a different thing. It's just basically I owe you X amount of money, rather than a fine. Um, so it's like going into a shop and, um, but if you buy a drink or something, you owe them X money. That's the contract. That's all it is. Um, Now that's why it's difficult for them. I think my understanding. I might be wrong on this. If they'd won, I don't think I think the only thing I'd be responsible for, but I might be wrong on this, is the fine itself plus a bit of interest, and I'd have argued the interest down as well. I don't think they can claim a lot more. There might be a bit, but yeah, I don't think it'd be more than a few hundred at the most. And like I said, if you're not working your low wage, you just offer 10p a month. Even if you do lose, I mean that's really important, folks. So even this is why again, is it worth them taking your car? Because even if they win, is it worth it for? I mean, I knew somebody. It was one of the gas firms that when somebody, I won't name the gas firm. It's one of the major ones in England, though. And they took somebody to court, because she wasn't working. I think she offered 50p, and what I was told, it might be wrong on this. The gas firm refused that, and the judge says, "Well, she's made you an offer because you rejected it." It wiped the case. They lost, even though they won the case, they dismissed the case because the company refused the money, and that's the thing. I mean, this is the other thing when you do it. It's always worth making an offer if you lose to do this, because it's down to them to accept or not, and you know that the judge might go against the firm. So this is why a lot of cases, if somebody sues person A, and person A knows going to lose, it's sometimes better for the person A to make an offer before it goes to court, because it can be. So if you were to sue person A for £1,000, but person A said, "Look, I think it's £500 worth," then if the person says, "No, I don't agree to that," and then it goes to court, and the judge thinks you're just wasting court's time because £500 sounds reasonable, they can throw it out because you're just wasting everyone's time. So that's why a lot of these things are done out of court before it gets there, because judges aren't. I mean, you got to remember, judges are very intelligent people, and they don't want people wasting the court's time. I mean, that's why I think that. I mean, that's what. I mean, one of the things of these things is that I do wonder or suspect that judges aren't impressed by these these car park firms, because I don't think they see it as a valuable use of carts. So they'd probably be slightly more lenient towards you, but if you go to cart rather than the car park firm. So don't fear these carts. I mean, don't fear carts. They're really decent people, or judges. And like I say, this case got dismissed on that case on just on the fact that it was over the 14 days. I mean, like I said, you've got to be a bit careful with when it says for. I think on this I might be wrong, but I think they include the weekends as the 14 days. I might be wrong on that. You need to check this out. Some things when they talk about a period, they don't include the weekends, because they only include working days, because obviously The argument is that you can't get mail on a Sunday. So they're sort of a bit lenient there. But in this case, because it was so obviously 22 days, that even if you didn't include the weekends, it was still, that'd have been about 20 days or something on 18 days. It's way over. And there was no excuse for them to take so long. And you've got to remember, I think also, there was no, I think, I'm not sure if they have to put the ticket on at the time. And that complicates things if they don't. I mean, it was a ridiculous thing. But they tried it on. I mean, if they'd put the ticket on at the time, I think it'd have been. I think I wouldn't have had the case. But then again, they wouldn't have put the ticket on because I was here because I'd chatted to the. I won't go into the reasons, but I think well, my witnesses would have backed me up on that. But ask for. I mean, like I said, if you ever go to court for anything, ask for all the evidence you want. You're allowed to before the 14 days. You know what I mean? Don't be scared of asking for evidence and break everything down. If you get this, I'll show you the letter. They usually try and scare you by the huge bluffing thing so it looks so like you've got nowhere to leave. But usually, I'll see if I can find the response to it, some of my notes, because I like to go through everything and break it all down. And once you break it down, it's not, you usually find it's not, sometimes they've given themselves away. I mean, on this, I think, like I said, they didn't really explain in the letter why they argued that they were allowed to ignore the law, basically, this 14-day rule. And like I said, it was only when I got to court they said it's because they spoke to me. That's when it made it more clear. Well, you can read the letters anyway. I'll put it in. But like I said, don't be scared of these firms. My advice is just go to Sodom, go to court with them. If you're going to pay £100, why not just go to court and end up, even if the worst comes to worst, it might be a bit more than 100, but get your money's worth. Let them fight, you know what I mean? If they took everybody to court, I don't think they'd bother. But I know they have, it does look like they have, I think in this case, it looked like they had a solicitor, I might be wrong, and a retainer. I think because when I was there, I did hear a few more vehicle control services pop up, so they've been interested to know if they'd won or not. But anyway, I just thought I'd do this. Personally, it's worth just saying I did win. Well, I don't know if that's correct technically. If it is to say I won, the case was dismissed. So take that. I don't know if that legally means I did win, or technically I just didn't have a case or whatever. I mean, a lot of these things. The trouble is, it's a lot of very legal, technical stuff there as well. But like I said, don't be scared. The judges usually help you out anyway. I mean, the judge in my case was very nice. Actually, very, very nice. Even though, to be honest, I think I annoyed her, if anything. Especially because I took the bag in, so... but anyway, it was over and done with in a few minutes. But like I said, I'll try and include all the paperwork. I don't know. I think I might even I think the process, you might get a letter in a few days stating that the case was dropped or dismissed. But if you're in the right and you've got a lot of this, by the way, it's important to keep as much evidence as you can. So any phone calls. I mean, it's why personally, this is something I would never do. I'd never phone these firms ever. Have everything in writing. Whatever you ever do, whenever it comes to something legal, personally, try and avoid verbal. Try and keep everything written and keep evidence of everything. Don't accept phone calls personally. I'd have everything written down because, in my experience, people can say things and then deny it later, or one can interpret things differently. Even if you might hear something and they might actually be in the correct, and you might misinterpret what they've said because that's what humans do. It's always best to have it in paper so you can read it a few times so you know, because sometimes you might read something and then read it again later and realise what you thought it said it didn't, if you see what I mean. And you can sometimes get yourself wound up and you don't want to be phoning up and then swearing or something, because you could be in a lot of bother there, or threatening or something. So keep everything written and keep it, even for a person, I'd keep it for 10 years. Because you never know, they might come after you and claim the dates are different or something. But like I said, if you do get one of these yellow tickets, sometimes information's wrong anyway. Sometimes they handwrite it and they put on the wrong car reg or whatever. I mean, even if, and by the way, if you even get a legit one and they haven't put the right reg on, you can probably forget it, because if they haven't got your correct reg number, they can't go to the DVLA and say whose details is it, because obviously it's not your car. They'll be looking someone else's up. So I mean, that's the one thing. Always check. I mean, years ago, I got one from a car park from, and I did actually tell them to stuff it. I did contact them because I actually put the wrong reg on my car, and I says, "I ain't my reg," so they had to drop it. And this was cheeky, because it wasn't because I was over the limit. It was literally because the car wheel was touching the yellow line in the car park, and they said that was against their rules. So sometimes these things aren't always because you've been there too long. Sometimes if you touch the yellow line or the wheel's gone over, you might get tickets. So if you ever park up, make sure you park it directly in the bay. Be careful how you park, for goodness sakes, because these firms will get you on everything. And don't even trust, I mean, the government ones are just as, you know what I mean? I went to post a letter once and literally it was 30 seconds, and I came back and had a ticket on the car. And I presume someone was literally hiding behind the corner, because it's the only way I could see them doing it. And I thought, that's a bit sneaky. That was a few years ago. But I paid it because, like I said, it's not worth the hassle to fight it. But I never shop there again. I mean, this is why shops in the UK are shutting, because people just don't want to park up and get fines. There's wherever I see there's a lot of places I know people just won't go to now because they know they'll get a ticket. It's just not worth it. So the council in the long run, because these shops close, and normally they pay the council rates. I think it goes to council. Well, when they close, the council doesn't get that money. So short term they might get money from car park fees, but long terms they don't. They don't get, because shops shut. I mean, I've known people have said to me, "Oh, I'll open a shop," and I've said, "Don't bother. It's not worth it. You're not going to get customers these days because people are too scared to go shopping." But that's me going off subject again. Like I said, the firm was Vehicle Control Services, and I'll include the paperwork. And the judge dropped through it out. Well, dismissed it. I believe is the correct term. Dismissed it on the basis that they're taking too long to contact me. And the excuse was because they'd ID'd me at the time, which they hadn't. Because I mean, nobody's going to give you a name and address, are they? I mean, that's just nonsense. In fact, even in the statement, they didn't say that I'd given my name and address, so it was a bit silly. I don't think they said that anyway. But I mean, it was just, yeah. I'll include as much as I can. Hopefully, you can read it, because I'll take the picture on my camera phone, and it's not. Sorry, just spoke too long. So anyway, I hope this is some use to you guys. I mean, like I said, personally, is it worth contacting them? Well, I can't tell you legally not to bother, but I don't think it. I mean, I know I never ever will respond to these. If I ever get another ticket, will ever bother? I'll just ignore them and let them go for the full force, because I honestly, this is the only time I've ever contacted a company to dispute it, because normally I just ignore it, and because I knew I was in the right. That's the only reason I contacted him, because I did everything correct. That I got taken at court basically. And it shouldn't have gone. It was a fairly obvious case they should have dropped, but they wanted to try it on, so no sympathy to them. I hope it's cost them a lot of money and time and effort. messing about doing this. But still, it's up to them. It's their money. Oh, by the way, you can claim expenses, but I think you've got to claim before. So I think you can claim reasonable ones. So I think if you get a taxi in, you can claim for that, and you can claim if they look. You have to look this up. I couldn't be bothered. I mean, I'd rather just put this YouTube video out and let people listen. You know what I mean? Because more people that do this, more I think it'll put these firms off. It takes away the power. I mean, the power is the fear. That's it. People fear the carts when they see the cart letters and stuff. It's only when people like me tell, I when I'm walking the dogs, I'll be telling people this. I'll say, don't fear it. Because I've done it before, and people have said, really, you just can just they're not that. They think they're going to lose their houses or something. But nah, don't fear it. Let them take it a cart. But like I said, you've got to remember they have to. The rules might have changed, but because it's a bit like a few years ago, if you went through a speeding camera, you just had to ask it if they've calibrated it that day, because it happened to me I'm going back quite a long time. I went through and it was 4 a.m. in the morning. I nearly wrote the car off. I didn't realise it was a 30 zone. I was doing about 35, thinking it was 40. No cars on the road, nothing. There was in this flash, and the flash nearly was so bright, I nearly wrote the car into a wall. It was just the most terrifying thing going. And then basically asked for and all the way through I was told, yeah, we do have a calibration certificate. I mean, they had calibrated it for the year, but they're supposed to do it each day. And I think at the time, I don't know if it's still now, the way I read it was they have to run, I think it's a police car through the machine to make sure it works. Because after all, just because it works yesterday doesn't mean it works today. And it is a sensitive machine, so it's important that. But I don't know. I did read that line of, because everybody's using it, that if it still applies, they might send you a whole load of rubbish to pretend that they have, but it's still worth checking it out. I'm not saying that'll get you off, but there's no reason why they shouldn't calibrate it every day. They should do, because it might not be working. I mean, after all, I can't remember technically. I've seen some argue that fines should only be given by police because they've visually seen you do it, not because a machine's done it. But I don't know. But again, I mean, don't speed in these places. I've learnt. I mean, one thing I do is I just drive over 30 miles an hour, and it annoys a lot of drivers, but I don't care because I just don't risk it now. Because I don't trust these machines. And also, don't forget, most cars it don't produce an accurate speed. So just because your car says it's doing 30, you might actually be doing slightly above or slightly below. I think technically it's set slightly below, or no, slightly above, so you don't get caught out. But it's irritating when you get this because you think about it. I've seen kids. I mean, the other day, this little jerk off. In fact, I might do a little video about this. This is in Leeds. I was driving through, and this little jerk in an old knackered Audi and the black window. It looked like a grey Audi. I don't know what model. It was only a small one. Was literally zooming in and out of the cars, and he tried running into me because I didn't go through the red lights. He wanted to zoom through the red lights, and he was papping his arm. And then he'd zoom around in front of me and rammed his car right in front, literally millimetres. I mean, if I'd gone forward, it'd have been my fault because he'd put his car sideways into me. And yet these little jerks get away with it. And if you know this, guys, there's little. I suspect people who drive badly like this have very small penises. And the reason I think this is because he literally, when he drove round me, He leant out his window, and he looked the most puniest, pathetic loser I have ever seen. And he was so weedy, and I couldn't lean out my window like that because I'm too big. But this guy was so puny, and I just thought, yeah, obviously got a small penis. If he's like the rest of them. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, this is why I never fall out with these people getting road rage, because these little jerks tend to have, I suspect, small penises. They're inefficient like that. I just don't know where they can feel manly. I mean, see, that's why, I mean, you do see people after, when you see people in big cars, expensive ones, zipping in and out thinking they own the roads. Just say to yourself, they've obviously got sexual problems down below, probably small penis. All right then, folks. Bye.